Let me first briefly describe the prosecutor's office to you. It's a large office. There are 32 assistant prosecutors. There's a crime laboratory with scientists or investigators to support people. It's a staff now of over 70 people, so it's a large, very busy office. And when I got to the prosecutor's office, the way they did things was different than the way we do them now. I have improved many things, and I did that based upon my experience. I have tried everything from a capital murder case all the way down to a parking ticket and practically everything in between in my career. I've been prosecuting for 38 years. There's hardly any kind of a case I haven't tried. But I realized that the prosecutor's office, the prosecuting attorney, the elected one, has to be the leader. He has to run this office. So one of the first things I did and changed when I came into the office is I didn't like plea bargains. I said, we're going to change the way we do plea bargains. First of all, we're not going to do any plea bargains until we first talk to the police and we talk to the victim. And they become an integral part of it. So we've changed the whole concept of plea bargain. For victims' rights, in fact, I received an award from the Attorney General, a Special Achievement Award for my work in victims' rights and our victims' rights program. We have victims advocates that will help the victims go through the process, actually physically, literally hold their hand sometimes, so that the victim doesn't become abused by the process. I have managed a crime laboratory. In a way, the crime laboratory, when I came, was a nice laboratory, but it wasn't accredited. I first got national accreditation. I now have international accreditation. Our crime laboratory is the best crime fighting tool we have in Lake County. It's accredited to the highest international standards that any crime laboratory can have. And as far as taxes collect, notice you didn't get any numbers. We have a tremendous tax collection rate. We do collect all of the taxes in Lake County. The property taxes are almost 200%, except for there is a delay because we don't get the property taxes to collect until 2 years after the treasurer has tried to collect them and then turns them over to us. And that's the first time legally we can do anything. Thank you.
We're going to take one more question from the panel here, and then if there are questions from the audience, if you would line up again down here, and we'll bring the microphone down after we complete this one question.
In the questionnaire that we sent you, we asked for your opinions about Agenda 21, United Nations Agenda 21, or goes by the name regionalism. And for those in the audience who may not know what I'm talking about, it is essentially a proposal that various political divisions be overseen by a kind of an administrative layer of government which would pool taxes and resources and that kind of thing. This was actually a proposal, and Governor Strickland had wanted an implementation plan of it on his desk. Fortunately, he was turned out of office, so it didn't come to anything. But what is your position on it? Who does it go first? Mr. Colson.
Well, I think there's a delay before it turns on. I'm going to have to wait. I think I finally figured it out. As I said in my answer to the questionnaire, it's utter nonsense, Agenda 21. I didn't know much about it until I got the questionnaire, and so I started Googling it and looking up the United Nations Agenda 21. And when I found out that the United States signed it, although it's not a treaty, so the Senate didn't have to approve it, but the United States signed it, and I started looking into it. It's nothing more than the liberal, collectivist idea that we're going to control everything. We're going to control your life, your production. We're not, elected officials aren't as important as appointed officials. It's just utter nonsense. And as I started looking into it, I didn't even want to look into it anymore. I will tell you, I believe in freedom. I'm a capitalist. I am a hardcore, absolute capitalist. And I believe in individual rights. I believe in an elected constitutional government, a republic that we have. And I don't want to change any of it. And I, quite frankly, if I had any authority and if I were president, we would unsign Agenda 21.
I don't I agree with Mr. Colson. I was unfamiliar with Agenda 21 until it was listed in the questionnaire, and after looking into it, I also don't believe that the United States should be entering into any agreements with the United Nations that affect our sovereignty or our best interests, or negatively impact either one of those areas. I do believe the United Nations has a place. I suppose we are a smaller world than we used to be, and the United Nations has a role in the whole planet. But each country is still a sovereign nation. It has to look out for its own best interests. And I hate to see the same thing that happened with the federal government happen with the United Nations in terms of the enlargement of those bodies. And I had the privilege of serving as the legal advisor for Painesville Township for many years, so I'm very familiar with the township form of government, which is one of the smallest forms of government. And I think that those small forms of government are the best in position to address the needs of the communities. They're right there, they're living amongst you, they know the needs of the community best, and they're the most efficient at meeting the needs of the community. So I'm a big proponent of the local government versus a detached federal government that's in Washington, D.C. that's calling the shots from there. They really don't know what's best for our communities and for our areas. And I believe, again, I'm a proponent of small government. I think it works best, and that's based on my experience as an attorney for Painesville Township. And I oppose Agenda 21 and any other type of United Nations proposals which either impact our sovereignty or our best interests. Thank you.
There don't seem to be, and there's a vote, you're right. There don't seem to be any questions from the audience, so I've been asked to ask one more. Oh, you have one? Okay. No, why don't you come down here and we'll give you a microphone so people can hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Come on, if you have questions, come on down. We'll give you opportunity to ask them as the time permits.
I'm curious to know if other candidates support harsher penalties for offenders of DUI offenses, and whether or not the penalties should be increased when individuals are injured or even killed when the offense occurs.
Could you hear that? People hear that? Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And the question goes first to Mr. Barthel.
I propose tougher penalties for any types of repeat offenders. I think it's a shame in the state of Ohio, and I've been practicing law now 17 years, and I was doing it for the first 8 years of my career as an attorney. I was an assistant prosecutor prosecuting felony cases, and I've been doing some defense work since then. But it's a shame when you see these rap sheets that can get accumulated by individuals. There are habitual chronic criminals in the state who make a living off committing crimes. They're just professional criminals. They're in and out, in and out, in and out. I've seen cycles, lead CCHs that have 40 or 50 cycles. That means 40 or 50 separate involvements with the criminal system by individuals. And these individuals are people who are, in my opinion, beyond rehabilitation. They just simply need to be, at some point, they simply need to be incapacitated. I can understand there's, with first offenders, things like that, you want to cut them a little bit of slack. You want to try to work with people who may have problems and things of that nature initially. People make mistakes. But there comes a point in time when you realize that that's not what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a repeat offender who continues to, especially ones that victimize people in the community, they just need to be locked up for longer periods of time.
What the heck is wrong with 3 times an hour? I don't get it. I also don't get our legislature, our General Assembly recently passing in the budget bill provisions to allow people, violent offenders, some of them, to get out of prison early. I don't get that. There comes a point in time when we have to protect ourselves, and that's part of the purpose of being a prosecutor, is to protect the public. We take great pride in wanting to protect the public, and we really dislike it when we get somebody sent to prison, and all of a sudden we see the legislature say, well, now we're going to let them out, the parole authorities say, now we're going to let them out. We fight that, but we're not always successful. And what really has me concerned is that we're allowing our punishment